All right, y'all, we are here live in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago during Carnival season 2026, and I have the pleasure to be sitting next to the Shari Petti. She is the woman that you need to know, and her work is something that you need to see. She has curated mass and movies. It's a true testament to what Trinidad and Tobago is all about, the feel, the essence, the culture, and today we're going to get into the details. So Shari, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, Scene Productions is you.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Before I made Scene, I was in university in my undergrad and I was making some work, like making work for school and class and putting it on YouTube and getting like feedback from peeps, and that was a good run. And during undergrad, I also created a series called Small Line. And I went to Barbados and I went to Tobago with one as well. So I had 8 episodes of that. But then when I left school, I was like, I need somewhere to put my work. And then I was also collaborating with people a lot. And I didn't want to just put it under Shari Petti. So I decided, to start my own production company as soon as I left university. And that's how Scene came about. So
it sounds like you have an abundance of material and you're just like, I need somewhere for this thing to live.
real.
The overarch of the work that I felt as an audience member was you as a woman bringing in a contrast of softness, a regal energy, just like a real inside view of what life is like for maybe what people would often characterize with Trinidad and Tobago as tough, very masculine, rigorous, fiery. We love that. We love that. But there's another side to it. And you did that in an amazing way, especially with the stick fighting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, doing mass prep was a major research project for me. Outside of making a documentary, there was information that I wanted to know. There were things that I wasn't seeing, things like parts of the process I wasn't privy to that I couldn't find on Google, that I couldn't YouTube. And I was like, you know what, I want to make something so that I could find out this information. And that's what sparked it. So each person that I've been able to document, I feel like they were a researcher in their own right, giving me as a researcher more information.
You say that collaboration is at the center of your creative process. Say more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like by nature, film is a collaborative, art form. Like, yes, there are films that I make on my own. Like, there's some things that I go out and it's just me and a camera. And especially when I'm traveling, it's really just me and a camera, or maybe one person I meet along the way. But if you want to do things efficiently and scale up, you need support, and you need people to bounce ideas off of, and people to organize the production, and people to bring their own creative spin to whatever you're doing. Because I feel at the end of the day, when everybody who's really good at what they do come together, you end up with a product that reflects. And I've developed really cool relationships with these people. Especially I love talking to the elders, because sometimes I get like a random call in the middle of the night. They're showing me part of their costume that they're making, or what they're working on for this year, or asking me if I'm coming by next time to see them on the road and stuff like that.
Nice.
So, yes.
You also had a Super Soca Star, young brother in the movie. Was that his debut in film?
Yes, that was his debut in film.
Right here with Scene Productions, Mass and Movies. That's right. So how was it for him?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was a really fun. I feel like when we were filming, you could tell that he actually wanted to do this really well. Whenever a little mistake happened here or a little something went okay, he'd be like, "No, we're doing it again.
That's
we're doing
right.
it again." And I didn't feel like I was overly rushed to get it out of the way. It was like, this is somebody who actually care about how they're represented and care about this product looking good as well. And in general, in terms of my other collaborators, in terms of mass prep, a lot of the music in mass prep is Ozzy Marik, who's a producer and performer from Trinidad and Tobago as well. He, especially in the 90s, he would have had a song called Rollin' and many other songs in that realm that were really pushing soca in that kind of really, really dope tempo and unique production. I actually don't take long to edit, but I take long to start to edit, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I take a long time to just really understand the footage, sit with the footage, think about it. But when I actually start, I probably spend 2 or 3 days and get it out the way pretty quickly. And for me, the labor is the waiting and the sorting part of things. But when I actually get into the groove, I feel like it's like a puzzle that I'm connecting. So with just Ari, I had an editor. She's not based in Trinidad, she's based in London. And she was so good. at like really understanding the footage, taking our time with the footage, putting things together, understanding where things look. And then when I came and I saw what it was there, like the feedback, it didn't take too long to bring it to like a final product because the pieces are there. Like she saw what I was seeing, so it's really just to rearrange them.
So you have your big features. You also are adamant about showcasing local talent. Say more about that because I saw a couple of creators that I would hang out with here in Trinidad or, has a clothing line or a brand or a project or something. They're like, hey, I know them. Hey, I know I see that. Okay, I see you. That was a really special moment for me to witness as an audience member. How important was that for you to include?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the actors that you saw, both in Just Irie and in Fantastic Friday, were like non-actors or people who would have not really acted on film in any kind of like narrative sense. They would have done like maybe a commercial. They would have done like videos or music videos, but in terms of acting in narrative films, I feel like those opportunities come by less frequently. So there'll be people who have been looking at for like a very long time, and like as soon as I get the chance to like pay you, I would put you in front of a camera. And
Listen, I love that she said that. Pay your artists. I love that. Acknowledge, pay your artists.
Because the talent is there, So as soon as I got the opportunity to like cast them in something, I would invite them, or would be watching them on TikTok for a long time, or watching them on Instagram for a long time, and seeing what they have going on, and then eventually, the right time will come for them to fit this certain spot, etc. I would have told them, hey, I'm looking at what you're doing, like I'll reach out in a couple, and I actually did. So.
Yeah, that's incredible. Again, it just speaks to the authenticity of massa movies. These aren't hired actors that can do the thing well. These are people who are doing the thing well because they are living it. It's an authentic exchange. I felt that through and through. I want to talk about funding. Creative process cannot take place unless you have money. And I think it's admirable when artists have that drive and they go out for it. Just, we'll make it happen. Bootstrap, pulling out my pocket, asking for money.
For Mass Prep in particular, I got content creation grant from Film TT, and so I'm able to like hire a social media manager, market the work itself. But that was like for that work, not for Mass in particular. And same thing with the Ministry of Culture and Punching. That's for Mass and in particular. And so grateful for that support for sure, because that definitely helped me like mobilize and get things started. And while it didn't necessarily cover like the full production in terms of like post production or having like a large crew, I feel like being able to understand what I could do with this set of people and this budget, now help me like really understand, okay, these are the things I can put in place to do this on a larger scale, or these are the people I need to reach out to in order to get the proper finishing funds. But in Trinidad or in the Caribbean, I feel like I would say for Trinidad in particular, access to those kind of funds don't come across as frequently, and especially film specific funds. We don't really have like a film fund for like Trinidad or the Caribbean like that. So a lot of people who make work is because they would have reached out to private investors or reach out to like certain government support, which might partially cover some things. Or they have their own money and they would like pocket things. So like Fantastic Friday was like self-funded. Just I was self-funded minus a donation from Central Bank Museum, that which would have helped with like feeding my cast and crew and stuff. And then Mass Prep was partially funded, but then the rest I had to like finish up on my own. And then, but I also, when I say finish up on my own, even though I was finishing up on my own, I got like opportunities like fellowships through like Oxford Books University. I went for like a month there in Oxford, and I spent time editing the work
in the States or in London?
In the UK. Yeah. So I spent time finishing some of the edits. I spent time meeting with people in the Caribbean community there. I showed some of the works in progress and some of the work that was completed previously. And then through that opportunity, like people who are like exhibitors, like people who own different movie theaters and stuff would have attended that. And like I would have shown it at the Picture House in Notting Hill Gate. I would have shown it via Minute Shorts. They had a program called Day Before Carnival.
Wow.
And even South London Gallery had a lineup of my films called Carnival of the Archive, Shari, Petti. And that I would have shown Mass Prep and some of my other music videos that I would have produced over the time. So those opportunities, were number one. I got financial support to be there, financial support to, like to speak about the work, screening fees, those kind of things helped me really like, create better framework. So it wasn't just me in my apartment alone trying to finish this. I feel like those things helped me push it further. And then from then I would have also shown some of it in Martinique as well when I did a residency there for a month, and also worked on other projects while, exhibiting that work too. So, thankfully, I was able to get those residencies and fellowships to give me the space and time to think about it. I did a fellowship with Third Horizon Film Festival in May 2024, and I would have taken that. I would have had that before I wrote the full script. Actually, no, I had the script. I had a first draft of the script, and I had like a production bible. And through that fellowship, they told me what I need to do to fix my production bible, feedback on the way that I pitch my ideas. So after that experience, like I feel like I was way better equipped to come out and actually, like, I met my co-producer during that same festival as well, and she was the one when she came to Trinidad last October. She was and we had this. I had the script, and she's like, I'm here for a couple of days. Let's see if we can film something from it. And then we shot something from it, and we got it edited within the month, and that's what you saw at Mass and Movies. So a bunch of different people came together and collectively to make it happen. And even in like last November at the Rio Cinema, we showed Master Movies over there, and that was with the same curator from Oxford Brookes University who would have supported the residency where I developed the work. So that's the place where the work was finally shown. And then in a week or two, on the 24th of February, we're going to be talking about the work at the Creative Industries conference that Oxford Brookes University is like running at the moment. So it all kind of came full circle.
Yes. Cultural ambassador, scholar, community advocate, doing all of the things, but not doing it alone.
This optometrist today was one of our sponsors, but the majority was self-funded, and also Scotch TV came on as a media partner for that. So it's still not an easy thing to do.
Oh no,
it's still seen, putting a lot of money into making these things happen. And,
but you're building momentum, right? With your consistency, you're showing up, you're bringing your people with you, and people are seeing the value in that. I certainly saw the value in it. I was like, who is she? Let me give her a call ASAP.
I mean, we always hear about patrons of the arts. A lot of the great artists that people rave about in all these other European Western countries is because they had people who sponsored their practice, and they would be able to spend decades literally just working on several pieces of art. And that's what they were able to present. But I feel like we don't really have a lot of that in our modern time. And a lot of times people who get the support are those who might already be viral or might already have that kind of traction. So it's like, let's tack onto this because it's already, making sense from a marketing perspective. So let's put money into this. But when I go to like a lot of other regions, it's like the artists who, there's sometimes maybe artists with like not even an Instagram page, and they have like sponsorship and they have support to carry all the work that they want to do, and it's not based on those kind of metrics, and people come out and there's an audience, and it doesn't mean that because they're not popular on Instagram or that because they're not like in a mainstream art forum doesn't mean that what they're doing is invaluable or worthy of financial support in any way. So for me, that's a thing that I've noticed, especially like being able to be in other countries. And even just hearing from some of my friends, like I have some of my friends, they literally get paid to like go out and find filmmakers from across the world and like recruit that kind of work for different festivals. Like they get paid to have diversity be a part of their programming, and those are young people. So like and that's just like that's something that people might look at as trivial, but that's how some of my work would even be able to show in other places because those people were there in the correct spaces scouting the work. So like I wish there was more like understanding of the value of these kind of things, or even just if you were to take the capitalist approach from apart from the community that I just mentioned, or the grassroots work. If you support a film as a investor, as a business person, number one, there are tax write-offs. There's the film rebate. So you could get money back just from supporting a cultural product. There is your product placement. So when people watch this work, your logo is there. People are drinking whatever your product is. People eating whatever your product is, and therefore they know more about whatever you have to offer. And then also the archival potential of that versus like a one-off event. Not to say and not to like downplay anybody's like event. Like a screening is an event too, but it's an event that also has a archive that's going to live forever. When a film is made and when the logo is stamped on that film, or production company stamped on that film, that is going to exist forever, and that travels. Like I'm going to Italy in April with Mass and Movies and with other work because it can move further, and then whatever logos or brands would have been a part of it for previously, now the world knows what they have going on in other parts.
Now the world is watching.
So those are the things that I think about, and I kind of disappointed when it's kind of hard to convince like different corporate entities, like
Yeah.
why these things are important, and not just corporate entities, like anybody, like a random person who might not understand art, or why you need to show up to an exhibition or show up to a screening. Just because it's not a Hollywood film doesn't mean it's a poor quality film. It's your culture doesn't mean it's boring. Like all these things, like I feel like shouldn't have need convincing, but somehow it still needs convincing. But that's also because people just don't know, or if they know if they do know about the value, they don't care about the value because it's not their scope or not their arena to care about.
I think a lot of people felt seen with these films because you captured moments that are lived experience. You know, Fantastic Friday, you have the kids who don't have any money and they jump in the gate because they want to have a time, and it's just like they're risking it all. I felt like people could relate to that. You know, I was like, yes. I also love that you talked about social media because viral culture is right next to cancel culture in 21st century. Let's just keep it all the way real. If you're not seen, if you're not in the front, if you don't have thousands of followers, if people aren't reposting and sharing your content, you could feel discouraged. I've heard a lot of young people say that, Gen Z in particular, people don't really care, but I'm an artist. Yeah, but do you care? And so I felt like these films are also giving the next generation hope for what is possible when you dedicate yourself to not only what you love, but what is necessary. And clearly your work is necessary. Yes, we're in Port of Spain, we're in Trinidad, but you just said it, rightfully so. UK, you touch UK, you're going to Italy. Have you been to the States yet?
Yeah, I've been to the States.
Been to the States? You know, this is amazing. What have you learned about yourself?
What have I learned about myself? I feel like there were times in my past where like I always knew that these are the things that I wanted to do, not necessarily like in this exact way. I know I would want to be creative or part of the creative process. And even if people were discouraging to me, I always, even if I would have knocked me down for a little bit, I always still knew this was something that I had to pursue in some way. I'm a very determined person, and a lot of the things that I figured about myself or about the world around me or how I interact with people, or how the world interacts with people who are creative or want to get something out of their lives, I learned to trust myself more through this process. Like knowing, okay, telling myself, you know what, this, even if this is a knockdown for now, that don't take it on too much. Let's keep going, and be keeping going. Everything that I kept going for ended up being what it needed to be. So,
You talked about community, but would you say there's any one or persons that were a backbone to you throughout this process that you want to acknowledge?
in terms of like people who help with the most immediate stuff right now, like Master Movies, I'm really grateful for people like Kylie, Jacob, and Hammy Farrell, and Desiree Sozano, and Candy Hade, who would have, and Ajay Archer, who would have really helped, who were really the core team for making this happen, from the marketing to the, like, in terms of like coming up with the ideas or taking ideas that I had and lifting it even further, and organizing the logistics, making sure that it was an event that people felt really welcomed at when they did enter, and not just we slap together something and say come to this thing. And I feel like their attention to detail was very felt, and I felt really held by them. And in terms of film in general, like there's Leslie and Keaton, who definitely gave me a chance when I felt it was difficult to get into this industry, or Andre Dillon, who gave me a chance when I was trying to get into theater and nobody was high. Like, I was going to all these casting calls and nobody was giving me an opportunity. And I was like, you know what? I know I wasn't bad as an actor. I just know I needed the right person to see or give me the chance to actually show what I had to give. And, people like that definitely helped so much, because, if he didn't do that, then I would have never taken the chance, and, would have never known that there's something that I could like pursue.
Right. Would you say that that's what you do now as a curator? You really impress upon giving people a chance.
For sure. Like for me, as soon as I see a talent out there, I want to see it be, germinate into something grander than what it is, because then now there's something for me to see, somebody for me to look forward to, like, see and do whatever they have to do. Even if they're not acting in my film, there's something else that I could see from them in the future. And then that way, we're not going to be a boring society with not enough artists to fuel the world. Like, I don't care to be the only filmmaker making work. I'm not the only filmmaker making work. And I definitely I definitely want actors to have more opportunities to do what they have to do. So the more filmmakers making work, the more actors have, an actual viable job. And then also, it'll be less convincing as a unit to convince a movie theater, or convince the public to come out to something because there's so much going on that it's not like once in a while you see a carnival film, once in a while you see a this or that. It's like, everybody always making something. So every week you could go to Louis Vuitton and you could see something local. But that takes, a lot of investment and, teamwork and people not competing against each other in a negative way and like really supporting each other when something is on and not, seeing it as competition or, just having negative vibes around people's work in general. So yeah, I would say yeah, that's I guess what I do now. Even yeah, and like in terms of like people like Lauren, Taylor G, who helped me with my with just Irie as a co-producer and like really like believed in the story from the time. Even like Fantastic Friday, she saw Fantastic Friday and knew the work before she knew me. And like for me, somebody who's not from my country being able to like put so much attention to detail into somebody who they don't know, I feel like I was really glad to meet a partner like that.
That's love. Lost Tribe. That was cool. And it was clearly a different aesthetic than the other films. How was that for you to present something that would typically be presented in a commercial aspect, more transactional, if you will, because it's selling costumes, but it's also still selling experience and culture, which they are known for, but you had a chance to feature that. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I always enjoy working with Lost Tribe because they have such a unique, like taste or creative direction for their, approach to mass that is always like a treasure chest of ideas. Like I don't feel like I'm short on ideas when working with them. So it's always fun to, explore. And everything I do with them, I don't ever see it as just something to put on social media. I always see it as something like the road video that I did for them last year. When I was doing that, I didn't think that is just something that is going on social media. That ended up showing at the South London Gallery along with some of my other like films because I feel like it deserves that type of forum and attention because their work is art, and for me they put a lot of effort into making sure that they're not having like a basic kind of experience.
There's nothing basic about Lost Tribe. Nothing basic about Lost
you
Tribe.
can't use the next year.
Yes. Yeah, no, really. There was one film that you didn't direct by Edric Connor. Why was it important for you to include that in the Massa movie series?
Well, I've been trying to find that film and watch that film for many years, and I only got to see it last November when I was in London, and because it was geo-blocked to Trinidad, and I always, whenever I was in London, I always forgot that I could actually check it out. So I saw it and I was like, yo, I need to bring this to people because previously I would have seen King Carnival. The last Massa movie that I had in Trinidad, I showed King Carnival alongside some of my other films, which is a film by Horace Ove, the 1 hour documentary that he did for BBC about Carnival in 1973. And I found when I brought that film to people because it gave you a history of Trinidad and Tobago before even Carnival. Like you get the history of the indigenous involvement here, the African involvement here, the Indian involvement here, the Muslim involvement here, the Chinese and the Syrian, and then what they all came together to create in terms of the final product that Carnival is. And for me, when I saw Edric's work and found out more about him, he's like a brilliant person. Like he was the narrator and the producer and the director. He was also a performer. He's also the person responsible for bringing the first steel band outside of Trinidad to the UK. And like he made the first Manchester United jingle, which was a calypso, like the Manchester United calypso. Like there's so much that he did. He was really instrumental in the Deo song by Harry Belafonte being a big hit. He and his band recorded that before that they did, and then it was recorded a second time, and then eventually got to Harry Belafonte and recorded a third time. And so his involvement in music and theater and film and art in general was very inspiring. So for me, I needed people to know who he was and see this archive from 1960. I never saw it like besides November, and I watched it so many times before even bringing it to Louis Vuitton.
And we thank you for that.
No problem.
It had me in tears, and I was like, yes, this is what I literally left the theaters feeling fresh and new. Like I had re-entered Trinidad after seeing that. I was like, okay, I'm with new eyes. I'm going into Carnival, and I feel like anybody would take that on the road with with a more sense of not only being informed but empowered. What is next for Same Productions, apart from the fact that you're still on your screening tour and doing all the great things, and that is enough. I think a lot of creators need to hear that. Sometimes they feel pressure to one up what they have done before. You're only as good as your last performance. Let me stop. No, but really, I think it's really important I know that it's important for creatives to understand that what you're doing, where you are, is exactly where you need to be, and to take your time before you go into the next thing. But if you happen to have anything next coming up or in the works, would you like to tell us more?
More just I really like I'll be filming more of that essentially within the next year and two.
Nice. Okay. Nice. Well, thank you so much, Shari. It has been a pleasure chatting with you, and I look forward to what you have next for us. But as for you, you're off to Massa Movies again.
I am.
If you haven't seen it already, y'all go and see, support, and when you get a chance, or when Massa Movies is screening in your hometown, wherever you're visiting in your country, make sure you go out and support and be on the lookout for Shari, because she is, yeah, she's that girl.
Bye.
Bye. Peace.